Hey, what's up, family? Welcome back to another edition of the Try Life On podcast. And today I am speaking to Carla Royal. You can check Carla out at carlaroyal.com. What an amazing woman. So, you know what? I have figured out over time that the normal society of things installs into all of us a subconscious script that pushes us forward to chasing other people's versions of success over time, chasing what the influencer tells us, chasing what the guidance counselor tells us, chasing. What we're doing by constantly chasing is we are overriding that inner voice, overriding our own instinct that tells us what it is exactly we should be doing in life. Carla is an amazing woman who helps high performing founders, entrepreneurs, senior executives figure out how they are overriding their internal systems in favor of just chasing the next thing. As I say, the goalpost keeps moving, and sometimes people just don't see it. Many founders, many executives, many high performers normalize pressure to the point where they stop hearing themselves, where hustle becomes the identity, where the nervous system adapts to stress and calls it normal. And it's just not. Yep, there are periods in our life where we need to work 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week, especially if it's a passion. But if you are just doing it unconsciously because that's what your underlying script is telling you, eventually you are going to break. And when you do, you start to meet and start to desire people like Carla who help right the ship, help you see your underlying patterns, and help you recognize that you may be disconnected from who you actually are. And what resonated to me about Carla wasn't just her credentials. Go check out her credentials. When she's studied in the Tony Robbins organization, she was a psychotherapist for many years. It was really her humanity and her nervous system awareness. When we were trying to get this interview going, we missed each other a couple times. Once because I had an emergency regarding my parents and I could feel her humanity in the discussion. But two, because I was actually out in nature when we were communicating, or I was saying I was going to be late because I was in nature or something like that. Because I usually walk with my dog. I do what's called nature bathing, right? Like I'll disappear in the woods just to get reconnected to Mother Earth and to get grounded, to have presence and slowness and humanity before productivity, because I'm a very busy guy too when I want to be. And she immediately recognized herself in me, and I recognize myself in her because she does the exact same thing. So when I postponed our first interview because of family issues, she responded to me with presence, not pressure. And when you've done a lot of inner work and when you've done a lot of external business the way that I've done it, I can feel when someone is coming from a place of authenticity and not from a place of, I just want to get shit done, right? And she talked about that quite a bit, and that told me more than any bio could. I wish that a lot of the business partners, business associates, people out in industry, even in my corporate days, could have someone that could uncover their unconscious or subconscious routines that are pushing them to override the system that is our human divinity, our human dignity, and our ability to perform. And that is exactly who Carla is. In this conversation, we spent a lot of time on the concept of high functioning people getting disconnected from themselves. And that's kind of where I wanted to steer the conversation, because that's a topic that's very important to me as I've started to deleverage, let's say, some of my own business concerns and reorganize my own life to be more than just do. And she's really good at it. I hope you appreciate this conversation with Carla Royal. These are the kinds of things that formal education will never teach you. These are the kinds of things that social media will never teach you either, because they want you to go to their vibration of things, not your own internal one. And that's what Carla does. She helps you recalibrate to the goodness of who you are. We talked about the golden Buddha covered in mud. Listen out for that analogy. But for now, enjoy this conversation with my friend Carla Royal.
There he is.
What? How are you?
Good. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It is a beautiful day today. Where are you?
I am in Asheville, North Carolina. How
You're in
about you?
Asheville.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I spent a little bit of time in North Carolina, and I have some business stuff down there in the Raleigh area.
Okay. I lived in Raleigh for 13 years.
Did you?
Yes, I did. A long time ago, but it's a nice area. I think it's
Yeah,
really,
it's
yeah.
beautiful.
It
So
is.
it's so cool to meet you. I feel like I have learned more about you in the last 7 days. And then now I get to see you in real time and I'm like, oh, it just kind of all makes sense with the energy you exude.
Oh, that fast. You can tell something.
A little bit.
Okay. Good.
I
Well,
just
I've been eager to meet you. I've
Yeah,
heard so many good things about you from Steve and Mary Kate, and Mary Kate. I
he's
just
great.
love Mary Kate. I
Yeah.
just love her to death. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I've listened to a couple of your podcasts and checked you out. And man, you are doing some things, aren't you?
Well, I have for sure, and that's why we have so much to talk about because my lived experience has taught me a lot of the things that I think you teach all of your founders and entrepreneurs in that, and I'll explain kind of, I'll frame the whole conversation for you in a moment, but my lived experience has taught me a lot of things I think you teach your founders, which is I got to a point from a business perspective where I was like, no, my inner voice is telling me it's time to stop and it's time to deleverage. And it's time to not run on override the way you talk about it quite a bit. And it, it is interestingly, when I made those heavy decisions from an entrepreneurial and founder perspective, the awe from my business partners, family, friends, society was why would you do that? Because
Hmm.
why would you do that, right? So let me frame the conversation a little bit. I recorded this big intro so everybody knows who you are, so don't worry about the full background of everything. But
Okay.
where I wanted to start was exactly kind of what you say on your podcast interviews and your websites, excuse me, your podcast interviews and on your website, which is that folks are running on override and you help them with that. Can you just kind of explain that and we'll get into it from there?
Yeah, a lot of people, first of all, we live in a culture that lives on override.
Yes.
And so we get the message from the get-go that we need to push and grind and go and build and scale and all the things. And oftentimes we don't consider ourselves in that as much, as
Yeah.
we need to. And so we're often overriding. I mean, we're looking, we have a goal. We've created a goal in our minds or a vision or whatever you want to call it. And we put ourselves in the position to get to that goal, into that
Yeah.
vision. And oftentimes that includes overriding ourselves when it's not good for us. And so many of that, for so many of people, it's patterns running underneath that are unconscious that are pushing them and compelling
Yep.
them and propelling them. And I believe that there's a better way to do it or a healthier way to do it or a way that doesn't necessarily have to cost you as much as it ends up costing you to get there. And so my idea is that we learn to work with our systems instead of trying to override our systems. If you think about a car or, maybe even a Jeep or something with four-wheel drive, if you're running it in the red all the time, you're going to run the engine out. But if you use it
Mm.
well, it can go pretty much anywhere. A Jeep
Yeah.
can go anywhere. It can take you anywhere if you use it well. But we aren't using our systems very well.
Yeah, so contextualize that for us. I think I know exactly where you're coming from, but maybe give an example of a founder or an exec. And I think this applies in every aspect of life, not just
Yeah.
business or entrepreneurialism, but also in your family life and as an executive and as a coach and or whatever it is. But kind of give an example of what you mean by overriding your system in real world terms.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I have a client who enrolled with me recently who
Yep.
said that he is doing incredibly well. His business is going places he never imagined. He's scaling, he's doing all the things. And he says, and I'm enjoying about 10% of it at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything, all of my dreams are coming true, and I'm enjoying 10% of it. And I believe that's because he's overriding all kinds of parts of himself. And
Yeah.
it's trickling out into other areas of his life, into his relationships with his family and his children. He's not there for them. He's overriding his own body, which is being broken down. I have
Yep.
another client who's extremely, he's not a client of mine now, but we worked together for about 3 years. And he's extremely successful. To look at him, you can go online and find him now. He's doing
Mm.
extraordinary things, but he drove himself so hard that he ended up having to have multiple surgeries. He was
Yes.
literally killing himself. But he
Yes.
kept going and it worked. He was successful. But the cost became too much at some point. And so he realized he had to find a different way of working so that he wasn't overriding himself and still being successful. And he's figured out how to do that. So those are a couple of examples.
Yeah. And when you say overriding yourself, are you talking about them becoming disconnected from their own identity or them not paying attention to their health, their mental fitness, or what when you say themselves, what do you mean by that?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it means all of those things, but I
Yep.
think that disconnection is the right word. They
Yep.
don't really know who they are. They don't really know. One of that guy who said 10% enjoyment now,
Yeah.
he said, I don't even know what fun means to me. I don't even know what it means to have fun.
Yeah, you lose
If I
yourself.
just stopped everything and said to myself, I'm going to go have fun, I wouldn't know what to do. So they've lost touch with themselves in terms of what they really desire beneath all of the grind and all of the things that they're the success and the power and all those things. They are losing connections with themselves. They're losing connection with their loved ones, with other people. They're losing connection with, as you know, from our email exchanges, from the natural
Yeah.
world, how
Oh,
important the natural world
yes.
is, from the earth, and even from the spiritual, whatever that is for people. That doesn't necessarily mean God in the traditional sense. It may mean, it may not mean, but they're disconnected and they're living from here up, in their minds, in their brains.
Yep.
Their bodies are not in touch with their bodies. Their body holds incredible wisdom, and they're not in touch with it. They've lost touch with that and what their body, what their system really needs. And so much of it is unconscious at this point.
There are two people who I have come across, just for the listeners, for folks, if they want to go find a case study. But I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Glenn Hicks, and he's Canadian. He lives up in I feel like St. John's or New Brunswick, something like that. But he was in communications on the corporate side for so long and ran himself ragged to the point where he had a widowmaker heart attack,
Wow, yeah.
and he was clinically dead 6 seconds, 7 seconds. I don't remember exactly what he told me. He said that he remembered going unconscious. He could feel himself losing his ability to feel his body, but he was still there. That's scary to me.
Yeah, yeah.
That he was still there because I think we are there subconsciously, or we can feel ourselves subconsciously and rise above our body and kind of feel what is happening at a minimum. But somehow he survived it. And when he came back, that was the, let's say, transcendent moment in his life that he was going the wrong direction. And
Mm-hmm.
in this case, he had all the trappings of societal versions of success
Mm-hmm.
as they were defined to us by formal education and going into college. Then, of course, you want to get out of college and go into corporate, and now we are competing against each other. And I jokingly say, but I'm very serious, we're competing against each other for the vice president of marketing so we can have the cube in the back left. And we forgot why we're even doing it to an
Right,
extent.
right.
Can you talk a bit about, and I was listening to a podcast episode of you, which I found very insightful, where you said people, adults, high performers, are running scripts underneath. They don't even recognize that they are running them anymore, and maybe even never knew that they were running them. But can
Yeah.
you talk to that a bit?
Yeah, I love to tell the story of the Golden Buddha, and this may be a good place to tell that
Love it.
story.
Yeah.
It's a true story, which when I first heard it, I didn't know it was a true story, but it is. And I can't don't quote me on the details because
I got you.
I'm not a detail person.
Yeah, I got you.
But back many centuries ago, there was a village somewhere in a Buddhist country, and
Hmm.
they had a golden Buddha, a very very large, pure gold golden Buddha, and the village heard that war had broken out in the country. And so
Hmm.
they knew that it was just a matter of time before the soldiers came to their village. And so they took clay and mud and straw and just covered the golden Buddha because they didn't want it to be destroyed. And sure enough, the soldiers came in and they destroyed the village and killed everybody. But they
Yeah.
didn't touch the mound of mud. Centuries later, I think it was 1772, 1972 or 1950s or 1970s, I can't remember. A group of people were walking through this village or this area, and they saw this big mound. They didn't think much of it, but then the sun hit a crack in it, and they saw this golden gleam. And
Mm.
so they ended up coming in and taking off, and they found this $1 million, multi-million dollar golden statue of a
Yeah.
Buddha. And
Yeah.
I think of my work as that my job is to help people take off the mud that the society has put on, culture, religion,
Yes.
that we
Yes.
ourselves have put on. And Maurice, we've put it on in order to protect ourselves, or people have put it on us thinking that they're protecting us. So it's not out of malice or whatever. And so therefore, we grow up with more and more mud being put on us. And
Mm.
so who this gold and so our scripts, back to your original
Yeah.
question, is our
Yeah.
scripts are mud scripts. We
Mud
think
scripts.
we think that the mud is us. And so we try to form it, and we try to
Yes.
mask it, we try to adorn it. But we've forgotten that underneath it all is this golden Buddha. And I believe that we come into this world divine and pure and whole and not damaged. And I
Yeah.
believe that we're not damaged, but that we do have all this mud, and that the scripts we're running are the mud scripts.
Yes.
And so we have to get back to who am I? Who is this original me before all of the beliefs and all of the formal education you talked about, religions, all of the things
Yes.
that people have done to us to try to either control us or keep us safe, or that we've put on ourselves in a way to keep ourselves safe. So coming back to those original scripts.
Yep. And I'm going to ask you a question about the scripts that you see in founders and executives, but I want to pause and reflect with you for one moment. You know why I was so attracted to you as a person already? When you and I had that email exchange, I pulled it up today because it came back to me when I was doing research and stuff. And I was like, oh, I remember when me and Carla were talking by email. One, I had to cancel our first scheduled podcast because something was going on with my parents.
Yes.
And what that was, Carla, is a few months ago, it became apparent that I needed to step in as caretaker.
Mm,
Okay, so and it was and I, for people who have not been there yet, where something happens, I got a random call in the middle of the night, and I was like, oh my God, it's that phase of life. Like I just didn't see it coming. And you were so accepting of it and just said, I hear you. And then the second thing, and I felt like you heard me. And then the second thing was that I was out somewhere. I was either nature bathing or walking my dog in the woods or something like that. And you said something to the effect of, you talked about walking through the woods and reconnecting through nature a lot. And as you're speaking right now, I'm like, oh, I with your analogy, I would tell you, I feel like I'm in my golden Buddha phase where my shine has actually come back and I've dropped any
mm,
mud scripts that I've had
mm,
throughout the years, if that
mm.
makes sense. So I
It
just wanted to
does.
share that.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
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 What are some of the most common inherited scripts you do see in founders and executives? So hopefully folks who are listening can maybe do an inventory on themselves.
Hmm. Well, I think there's several, Maurice, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, but one of them is the optimization,
Mm,
optimizing every part of their lives. You know, the meditation, the cold showers, the cold plunges, the breath work, the supplements, all the things. And I'm not. I listen. There's a place for that. There's
yes.
a place
Mm,
for that, but there's like this overemphasis on the optimization, as if that's going, it's almost to me back to the mud. It's almost to me that's the adornment of the mud, like just trying to get that mud looking just right,
mm,
all of that optimization. And what I find is that people are doing all of these things and they still aren't feeling the freedom or the fulfillment or whatever it is that they are really longing for, or the belonging or the connection
hmm
underneath all of that, and they can't figure out why. That's one of them. The grind mentality is another,
mm.
that you have to grind in a certain way 24/7 to make it. And I had a client tell me once that they look forward to the day that they don't have to be scared or angry to be successful. That's a script.
Wow.
That's something running them away from a sense of inadequacy. That they are trying to become successful. I've got a client now who says, "I know for a fact that I'm successful because my father didn't believe that I could be ever, and I am driven to prove him wrong."
Wow.
And
That's his
and
script.
yeah, that's a script he has. And the problem with some of these scripts is that it does damage to him when he's running without actually taking care of what's beneath it, the patterns that are beneath it. It's not that he can't be successful if he's not driven to prove his father wrong,
Mm,
but it's not enough to hold you in a sustainable way all the way through to
mm.
whatever it is you're trying to do. So the grind mentality, I think, is another. For men, I'm going to generalize a little bit, and I
Sure,
know I
please.
want to acknowledge that it's a generalization and not always the case. But men are given a script from early on that to
Absolutely.
be a manly man, you can't have your feelings, you shouldn't have your feelings, that you have to do this particular path in order to be successful. And the truth is that success can look a number of different ways that don't
Yeah.
always include money or power.
Yeah.
But men are pigeonholed in a way that I think is very harmful for them. One of the things that honors me more than I can say, Maurice, is when my clients get on the phone with me, on a Zoom call with me, and they cry, and they say, "I don't cry anywhere." And because it's not allowed. And also this persona that high performers, the influencers, the gurus, they believe that it's not safe or okay to ever drop their mask. And so they don't, it's lonely at the top. So they're feeling this loneliness, the success, the persona is not, the well-adorned mud is not providing for them what they thought it would
Yeah.
do, and they don't have a place. So they feel like they cannot be vulnerable or
Mm.
cry or have their feelings, that somehow that's not okay or not manly or whatever. And I think those are very damaging scripts.
Definitely. And when you say scripts, I think you're saying, I know you have a much more of a clinical background than I do. I'm much more of a life experience or lived experience kind of person. I just draw from my own stuff, my own experiences and failures and successes, as well as coaching people more on the lifestyle design side. But it really did shift into conscious creation and understanding the relationship between our subconscious, conscious, and superconscious mind.
Hmm.
When you say scripts, I kind of want to call out for folks, it's not easy to see them. And sometimes we need a Carla to say, "Hey, have you thought about the following?" and to wake that person up. Because one of my favorite sayings to my friends, family, and my Trilifon family is to Trilifon community is to say, when you are the person in your own journey, it's very hard to see yourself. It's
Yes.
incredibly hard. So it's I think one of the scripts we have, especially as men, but all of us, is that we just have to do it by ourselves. And
Yes.
that is a very dangerous thing to do. Now, from a life perspective, and I want you to comment on this, the reason I say it's very dangerous to do is because you're going to wake up at 75 or 85 and realize you missed the whole boat because
Right.
you've just kind of been going in one way. But I'm sure just maybe you can just comment on the folks who feel like, no, I got to do this all by myself and I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and that's part of what going back to earlier, that it's we've lost connection. We've
Yeah.
lost connection with ourselves, with one another, with the earth, with the spiritual,
Yes.
whatever that is, and I think it's very dangerous. We are social creatures. I've got
Yes.
my little dog right here beside me, and she's a pack animal. Well, so are we, and we need our pack.
That's
And
it.
we live in this culture is very individualistic, and that's been extolled and set out as the thing that we should become. And 98% of our ancestors didn't live that way.
Mm.
We didn't think that way. We lived in tribes and communities, and we helped each other. And still to this day, none of us gets anywhere on our own. I don't care what anybody says. There are systems in place. There are things in place that help us get where we are. Now, you know, we could go into a whole long thing about
Yeah,
that.
of course, of
But
course.
but I do think that I see my own. I just came from my coach, an hour and a half with my in my coach's office. I see her every week, an hour and a half. I like you. I do have a clinical background, but it is lived experience,
Absolutely.
Maurice.
You've been around.
It
Yeah.
is lived experience.
Mm.
And so, yeah, this individualistic thing I think is very dangerous. It's very heady and powerful and
Mm.
seductive,
Mm.
but I think it's incredibly harmful to all of us. And men, I think, do kind of get the worst of that, but women to some extent these days more and more.
Yeah, and my theory, not my theory, it's not a theory. I have a fundamental belief, and it comes from my own journey of doing the three careers that I did, but declining promotions, knowing when to step out,
Yes.
knowing when to shift identities, and being comfortable with detachment. I got
Mhm.
comfortable over the years of being like, you know what, 22 years doing this, it's time to move on, that kind of thing.
Yes.
But the system per se that we are all thrown into starting at first grade, and I want to say this again because I've said it in many different ways, but first grade or elementary school is very creative. We eat paint, we throw glue, we do all kinds of things, and we're just exploring life. We're jumping fences in backyards. We get into elementary and grades in junior high. Compliance starts to set in. This is happening with my son now. Noah, bring this permission slip home to dad so he can sign this. Noah, you're in trouble because of the following. It's like, oh man, it's starting already. And then we get
Yeah.
into high school, and this is where I started to notice something in my own journey. And I noticed it because when I went to France when I was 15 years old, life was very different there. And what I noticed at my high school was everybody was competing. Like, what? Who's going to be the MVP? Who's going to be the valedictorian? Who's going to be the prom king? Who's going to be the prom queen? Who is going to make it to Harvard versus go to the community college? And if you are the latter, then you haven't made anything. And it would get into
Right.
people's psyche. All right, so we get out into college. It's kind of the same thing. We get into the real world. Everyone says, "Go work for Google. You'll be successful and you'll be happy," and all the things. The system does not want us to recognize that we are the golden Buddha underneath.
That's right.
If we do recognize it early, we will see the divinity in ourselves, and we will
Yes.
not allow the script. Now, the scripts are there, but if you build awareness of them, then you leverage this. I say leverage the 9 to 5 more than it leverages you to build whatever life it is that you want to build. But
Hmm.
if that happens, in a lot of ways, the system could break down a bit because it feels like it is designed to pump out employees that will not question anything, will
Hmm.
just chase the paycheck, go after things. And I started doing it a very different way. And how I was doing it in corporate, I recognized the goalpost kept moving. And then when I got into entrepreneurial space, it happened again. I was doing real estate and I'm like, well, I have 5,000 units of real estate now. They're like, you're going to get 10,000? I was like, no, it's too much. Like, why are we doing it? So why do you think founders, entrepreneurs, high performing execs, men or women, it's fine. They get somewhere. 10 years ago, they said they wanted to be in this place and they get there. They've made it, but they keep pushing after that. Why does that continue to perpetuate itself?
Well, I think it's back to what I was saying about the underlying patterns of,
Yeah.
for example, my guy who's super successful, he's made it, and yet he's still so driven because of the message of his father. And so if he doesn't deal with that unconscious thing that's driving him, because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of unconscious um, beliefs and patterns that drive us. And if we don't deal with those, then even if we get what we think we wanted, then it doesn't feel like enough, because there's some part of us that's like, no, I've got to prove to my dad or to whomever or to whatever, that I'm successful. And you see it. You're right. I mean, it's like control us, be the employee. I think it's also interesting that you said you were in corporate and then you became an entrepreneur, thinking it would be different. And really, fundamentally, it wasn't so different.
Mhm.
And I think that's what a lot of my guys and clients, I say guys, most of my clients are guys, but I do have some females, which is that it doesn't solve the problem of you. It doesn't
Mhm.
solve the problems that are living in you unconsciously, that are patterns that are driving you. And if those patterns aren't unearthed, first of all, and then worked with so that they can release, then they're going to keep driving you no matter how successful you are. You see,
Yeah.
I
I
see,
agree.
I see my clients who hit one goal, and before they've even practically noticed it,
Yes.
they're moving to the next
And
thing.
move
And
it
I'm
to the
like,
next.
dude,
Yeah.
slow down a minute and at
Yes.
least enjoy what you've created here. At
Hmm.
least take it in for a minute, and they are like, no, I got to go to the next thing. So it's driven,
Yeah.
overriding, overriding, overriding.
Yeah. And what's happening on my journey? So I just turned 50 last year. And
Congratulations.
thank you. I feel great, by the way. And
Yeah,
it's probably
yeah.
because of my heavy reconnection to nature and spirituality and things of that nature. But
Hmm.
I have made a conscious effort, and this is more from self-study. Let's say New Thought leaders, the Joe Dispenzas, the Wayne Dyers, the Neville Goddards of the 50s, been my unofficial mentor, Dr. Joseph Murphy, that I built this very light life uh, based on financial time, geographic freedom. I can be anywhere in the world for any reason and things of that nature. And I was doing exactly, I recognized my own pattern in that I was starting to do what I think you were just referencing about your client, which is, Maurice, you've gotten to this point where you have enough cash flow to take care of you, your mom, your dad, your kids, and any future kids and grandkids you want to have. You're spending an enormous amount of time with your inner circles of people. You're out in nature all the time. You're with your dog constantly because animals and trees and things don't add any resistance to any environments whatsoever. And I realized that, ah, I've already built it. Now I need to inhabit it.
Yes.
So
Perfectly stated,
yeah,
Maurice.
so my and I've never had someone across the screen from me where I felt like I could state that. And even if I wrote it in a newsletter, I don't think people totally understand. What's happening with me is that I've recognized my job is to inhabit the life that I've already created
Yes, yes,
and
yes,
to
yes.
get better at it and better at it. So when my business partners in many different facets, except for my creative stuff, which I really enjoy, are like, "Hey, let's go out and get six figures on this and that," and I'm like, it's not going to provide me any. In fact, it adds complexity to my life at this point.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that comes from my intuition, and I listen to my intuition and my inner voice. So here's the question I have from you: does chronic override mute people's inner voice that's actually telling them that something is off?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, good insight, because that's absolutely what you, but I just want to reiterate that inhabit the life that you've created.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what so many people don't stop and actually do. And as a result, you're experiencing more of your, if you will, golden Buddha
Yeah,
nature. So yeah,
very much so.
yeah. But yes, I think the override just numbs us. I think it just breaks us down. It numbs us, and it becomes more. I mean, my client who had all the health issues. I mean, honey, his voice. I say, honey, I'm a Southern girl.
No, go
He
for it. Go for it, baby girl. I love it. I'm
okay.
with you. I'm with you.
He was over. He knew his body was fussing at him and trying to get his attention, and
Yeah.
he just couldn't stop until it literally landed him in the hospital again and again, not just once, but again and again. And so Yeah, I think it just and what the voices, the parts, the scripts that are running us,
Mm,
they say to us, it's not safe to stop. And if we don't understand why, for example, I'm not, I haven't moved, I haven't traveled to 100 countries like you have, Maurice, but I have moved 35 times as an adult, and I'm 65.
wow.
Yeah, up and down the East Coast in different cities
Okay.
and different
Okay.
states. And part of that was because I just love exploration and whatnot, but also it was a way of uh, of managing some things, some
Mm,
anxiety for me,
mm,
of constantly on the move, getting the dopamine hit of packing, of moving, of looking forward to a new place, of getting into a new place, and then, a year or two later, leaving a place and doing that all over again to keep me from having to look at some things at that time that I didn't want to look at.
mm,
And so that's what happens sometimes when we're driven to be successful is we are driven because it's a way of managing some things underneath that we don't want to stop long enough to look at.
mm,
But if we don't, we're always going to be driven in this way that has real moments of excitement and it works on some level.
mm.
But are these people really inhabiting their lives? Are they really inhabiting their lives? And I would say that they don't come to me if they are. They come to me because they want to.
They want to, but they may not even realize that they need to. They may not even be able to put words to
No,
what you and I
no.
are talking about right now. That is not a normal thing you learn in, let's say, formal education or even in a PhD thing, or it's gotta come from my perspective, my humble perspective. It has gotta come from reflection. It's gotta come from spiritual work, or let's just say inner work, because the word spiritual is a very odd thing nowadays. It's gotta come from inner work. It came to me just to help people grab onto something. It came to me because I started to understand that happiness is not a result. It's a cause. It's causation. If you can get yourself to a place where you are just so happy, your world is going to follow suit. So for me, what is happy to you, Maurice? Well, it's exactly what you described. I didn't need anyone to get the mud off. I started realizing that I had mud on me, and I chipped at it, and I was like, oh man, this actually feels good every day when I get up and I, let's say, go for a walk with the dog. I chipped at it when a business partner asked me to do a deal, and I was like, no, that doesn't feel right to me. Even though I know I'm going to make money on that, that doesn't feel right. I chipped at it anytime I would get into a negative conversation with someone. And the biggest thing that helped me chip away at it was employing a mental diet. I haven't watched the news in 5 years. I left social media 4 years ago. I've detached from folks who no longer serve me and I no longer serve them, that kind of thing. Because we hear all that noise over and over and over again about what we are supposed to be, what success looks like, and what ambition looks like, and things of that nature. So I'm just giving folks a sense of like the inner work really matters. But there's somebody who's listening right now, they are ambitious, and I'm with them. I'm still ambitious about certain things. But how can you be ambitious without abandoning yourself?
Yes. And I think that one of the problems is that people think to not abandon themselves in the way that you and I are talking about it
Yeah.
will require them to will mean that they can't be successful. And I don't think that's the case. I've seen it not be the case. Now, what I do know is that
Mm,
when you do the deeper work, sometimes your goals, your values, your visions change.
for
That
sure.
can happen.
Yes.
They may change, and I'm not saying that won't happen, but oh my gosh, you can be even more successful in the way that really matters to you, whatever that is. By the way, I did listen to that podcast where you talked about letting go of social media and whatnot.
Oh,
I
okay.
loved that particular podcast. That one and the other one I loved so much was your conversation with your friend over text message, maybe. That was like
Talking about mental dieting?
Yes, yes, you were talking about that in the
Was
culture
I
and all.
in Beirut at the time driving or something like that?
Yes,
I
yes.
know exactly the one you're talking
Those
about. Yeah.
those two were my favorite. But yeah, the noise is numbing.
Hmm.
All of that noise and social media is I call it coiffed. It's curated in such a way that we don't get to see the realness of ourselves. We are messy, divine human beings. It is that we sweat.
Hmm.
We we it's who we are, and social media is not a place that we can find that. And
Loud. It's
yeah, so
very,
I
very
really
loud.
appreciate and respect because there's a great pull and great dopamine hits
Mm.
on that. So I respect that you have chosen to not to listen to that. One thing I would say,
Yeah.
you said I've done it on my own, take the mud off myself. And earlier you were saying how we need to not think about doing it on.
Mm.
I would say to you, just as a point of nuance, which I know you know, but just for your audience, that maybe those walks in the woods um, is the support, the other than human support, the more than human support that's helping you take off this mud.
Let me clarify that. I'm so happy you said that because sometimes I don't, you don't realize what you're saying when you're saying it. No, I have a massive supporting cast. However, the inner journey was a self-started journey. And if folks are interested, go back see, I can remember these things. Go back to podcast 42
Gosh.
where I talked about when I broke down because something happened in my life where I could not solve it the way I would usually solve things, like build something,
Mhm.
invest in something, go somewhere, whatever. And the only place I could go was in. So this
Yeah.
started this inner journey. This has been like 4 or 5 years now. Started this inner journey where I started to recognize some things about myself. And part of that was I had done a very good job. So in my Try Life On framework, there is five freedoms. There's time, financial, geographic, which are the obvious ones. Geographic is more about mobility, not being everywhere. Purpose, I had done really good on those four. The one where I was faltering was building meaningful relationships with people.
Hmm.
Because I was
Hmm.
so scattered doing all the careers I was doing, going all the places I was going, that I was not building a very cohesive, uh, let's say, family and friendship circle of people. I knew 1,000 people an inch deep.
Yeah. Yes.
And what I really wanted was to know 100 a mile deep.
Mm.
And that's the work that inner work first, but me being vulnerable to my friends and my business partners and saying, this is what I would like my life to be like, and this is what's in it for you, and how much I want to be a part of your life. Like I literally had these conversations with my mother, my father, my business partners, my deepest friends. So when you say doing it with people, I certainly have, but I also like what you said about I retreat all the time. I go recalibrate all the time. I'm in nature all the time. And while I like being in the woods, when I'm by water, I'm what's called a philosopher, someone who's attracted to water. But when I'm by water, like everything is good.
Yeah.
Everything feels. So I had to learn like what was it about me? What were the things about me that I could rely on as tools to regulate me when I needed to, you know? And I'm not
Hmm.
sure a lot of people take the time to understand those things about themselves.
Yeah, and that's so important. I love that you go into nature. I love that you have prioritized relationships and connections. I think that's absolutely right. I did see your five, what do you call them, values
Five freedoms.
freedoms. And I wonder how many people have some of those, some measure of those freedoms, but still don't have the inner freedom.
Oh,
And yeah, the nature for me, I call that the more than human world.
yes.
For me, I have a 7 by 7 ground cloth that I take out into the woods, and I'll spend an hour or two out there, just on the ground and
Oh,
with the
yeah.
trees, and
Yeah.
it's so. I'm like you. I have to retreat. I have to get away, but I am connecting. It is a way of connecting to myself, to the spiritual, to nature, and then of course the friendships are so important. But my high performers clients,
Mm,
so often they're running themselves so ragged that they
mm,
don't have time. to cultivate that kind of experience or relationships, and so they're not so regulated, and that's leaking out kind of all over the place and sideways oftentimes.
Yeah. It's got to be intentional. And I will never sit here as if I figured everything out, because when I was in the heyday of my own journey with three careers at the same time, I couldn't get myself totally regulated either. But there wasn't, I had an internal signal, like something was going on that I felt like this is not going to be forever, and I'm going to ride this until the moment that it feels like I'm done.
Yeah.
And for me, that was in 2021 when I just started retiring from everything. I was like, no, I'm
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
waiting until I'm 78 years old or 90 years
Hmm.
old or something
Hmm.
like that.
Hmm.
But for folks listening, what does a regulated, as we were talking about, what does a regulated, aligned high performer actually look like?
Well, a regulated high performer or regulated anybody
Yeah.
is someone who has self energy or self leadership, and
Mm,
so they are taking care of all of their parts of them. We have these parts in ourselves. We have the part that says, "Let's go do this," and the other part that says, "No, I don't think we can do that," or "I want to do this. I want to have that conversation." No, you can't have that conversation, or we have these different parts of ourselves.
yeah.
The work really is about getting your self leadership, your self energy, or your golden Buddha, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah. Yeah.
fully online so that it's taking care of all of these parts of you that sometimes rear up and want to take over. And so a fully also another thing about a regulated person
Yeah.
is that they they can track their system. They can track when they're out of regulation, and they know.
Yeah.
So we're not. None of us is ever fully regulated all the time.
No, it's impossible. And you don't want to be regulated all the time. Either we won't grow if we don't have moments of
Well,
pause.
there's a regulation, there's a mobilized regulation that brings
Yes.
on that sympathetic regulate that sympathetic energy where we have more energy that helps us to move, helps us to go. You're right, we do. We absolutely need that. But regulation is about knowing which state we need at the
Mm,
moment
mm.
and being able to get ourselves there. And the more self leadership or self energy we have online, the more quickly we'll recognize that and the more quickly we can get back to the state that we need to be in. And one of the things I'd also say about state is there's a
Mm.
lot of work out there that says mindset, it's all about mindset, and it's all about you can get yourself into the state that you need. And I think there's some truth to that, but I also think there's a limitation to that because I do think largely you can get yourself into a certain state. But if you can't stay there, then there's something underneath driving you that needs to have some attention, that needs to be understood.
I agree.
Because bottom line is our nervous system is here to say, I'm going to keep you alive. My
Yes.
job is to keep you alive. It's not to make you happy. It's not to fulfill you. It is to keep you alive. And when that kicks in without our consciousness, it's going to drive us. Whether no matter how much optimization we do, no matter how much meditation we do, or walking in the woods we do, if
Mm.
we don't deal with the underlying pattern or lack of feeling of not safe enough for the nervous system, then it's going to do what it's going to do.
Absolutely. And so I'll tie, before we get to the kind of the final wrap-up question, I'm going to tie something back to what I said earlier with all that inner work that started 4 or 5 years ago, let's say from podcast episode 42. I learned organically about the Hawkins frequency chart back then. And a lot of work led me to understand that I was always hovering around like courage, which is still kind of a little bit of a negative thing because you have some work to do to get to some normalcy or whatever. And it's 4 years later now, and I tend to hover around, oscillate between reason and joy. Like I
Mm,
look at this every morning as part of my own inner work before I start my day. So my baseline, my somatic baseline has fundamentally moved. I don't usually get to negative areas or areas that will draw energy from people, or I tend to be in a very, I don't want to say high, but regulated. To your point, I oscillate. Again, things that schools will never teach you.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
have to find, let's say, an inner throttle to go after that type of understanding of who you are. And I will add one more thing to that. And actually, if you could comment on it, but we are spiritual beings having a human existence. The human body can only do so much.
Yes,
It's not the world itself and all the circumstances of the world. You as a human can only do so much. Your brain, your conscious mind, only has so much capacity to make things occur. And if you think that you are going to do a million things a day to try and press and move your reality, you're just not, because we have limitations.
that's
And I'm
right.
wondering if you're, and then I'll ask you the final questions, but I'm wondering, because you work with people who are so driven, if they think that there is that we are limitless from that perspective, from the biological perspective.
Yeah. Well, I have a client who's what, 35, I guess.
Yeah.
And he said to me a couple of years ago that he knew he could do anything. And I said, "Oh, tell me more."
Mm.
And he said, and he's probably 5'8". He
Okay.
said, "I know at this point, if I wanted to become, a major league basketball player, and be the most successful player out there and the next Michael Jackson, I know I could do it."
Mm.
And my thinking is, well, man, you're not tall enough. You're too old. You don't have any basketball skills. I think it's unlikely that that can happen. Now, I didn't say all this, but I'm just saying, yes, I think that people are through through some of this manifestation
Yes,
world and
absolutely.
all of these things. I think there's a lot of truth to that, and a lot of there's a truth in it, but it's gotten misused to make us think that we can. No, to your point, we are a spiritual being having a human experience. We're messy,
Yeah.
divine people, and there are limitations. I can never. Yeah, you get the point. I'm
I do. I
65.
do.
I'm
Yeah.
65. I just decided at 65 that I'm going to learn to play the piano. And I'm so excited about it. And when I'm doing the research about it, it's like, yes, you can learn to play the piano, but you'll never be a concert pianist. Well, there's probably some truth to that. But I might also surprise myself,
Yep.
and so both may be true in some sense, but yeah, we are limited, but we're brilliant, Maurice, and there's so much that we can accomplish. But I want to accomplish
Yeah.
in a way that's congruent with my divinity and my golden
Yes.
Buddha self and my self energy. That's what I want to do and what I want to help my clients do.
I love
I'm
it.
not out to help them make more money. They often do,
Mm.
but or more success or more power, because I see the seduction of that
Mm.
and the disappointment of that. But I've got clients who can do both, and other clients who decide to go in a different direction to fulfill their true desires.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're doing this work. I really do. And I hope, I mean, I feel like I speak like this more nowadays about the fact that I've taken intentional steps to deleverage at fit or between 45 and 50 essentially, but to live more intentionally, to inhabit my life more intentionally. I'm in Maryland right now today. It's Wednesday. I was in Beirut all week. I left Beirut on Monday morning at 4:30 a.m. to go to the airport, local time there, to get to DC area in time to take my son to swim practice at 7 p.m.
Nice.
I created all these systems and an ability to be anywhere in the world at any time. That's not a money thing. That is a learning how to make worlds smaller, learning how to travel hack, learning that we are divine and we can do whatever. I don't want anyone's definition of what my life is supposed to be like. So if I got
Yes.
to commute from the Middle East back to the US East Coast on a Monday to take my son to swim practice, that's exactly what I do. Um, there are people who are listening who they're starting to realize it now because you have educated us to this concept of override, which the moment I read that, by the way, on your in your materials, I was like, that's the right word.
Mm,
We're overriding our own human performance ability, our own human divinity, our own spirituality in favor of
mhm.
chasing stuff.
Yes.
We can have ambition, but don't
Hmm.
override who we are. Sorry. So someone is listening, they want to try life on, they heard what you said, they're recognizing the override in them. Where do they begin?
Well, you began without, with the woods walking and so
Yeah.
forth, and with also some sort of a breakdown. I can't remember the exact word you used.
Mm,
That's where I began, was with a breakdown. First, when I was 25 and I was in severe depression, and I sought out a therapist. And then when I was 39, I had a complete system breakdown.
hmm
That's when I really shifted from my therapy days to the coaching, and really trying to find out what's happening underneath behavior, what's happening underneath people and performance.
mm.
Um, so, there are things you can do on your own, but you can go out in the woods more. You can meditate and get still and get quiet. There are all kinds of things you can do, and I don't know the best path for everybody.
For everyone. Yes,
But but
it's
I
not
do
linear.
I
Yeah.
do know for me and for so many of my clients and people I know, having someone who can be a kind of guide and a witness to you, who can see you and hold the space for you and create the safety so that
Mm,
you can look at things that may be uncomfortable to look at, has been certainly invaluable to me and has been invaluable to my clients. Someone, and often you see this in all our cultures, a mentor, not I'm not so keen on the gurus these days. I
me
think
neither.
there's been a place, but or the influencers so much. I want to be with somebody who's actually walked the walk. I want to
Exactly.
be with someone who's gone through it themselves and not just have an academic understanding or an influencer understanding or a social media understanding, but someone who has lived it and can
Mm,
walk with you in your journey. I don't know what's best for you, but I do know how to help you remove the mud. I do know how to shine a light. I do know how to help you connect with yourself. I believe you have all the answers. You being the bigger you of your
yeah.
listeners and anybody. And so, but I think to your point earlier in the conversation, we can't do any of this alone. We can't.
No,
Whatever that is, whatever that support is, I don't know. I know what it is for me. You've mentioned some of what it is for you, but we need support. And
we
so
do.
many people, especially high performers, are running alone and are lonely and don't have that support that they need.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Carla. You are a wonderful example of a support mechanism. How can people find you if they'd like to reach out?
They can find me at carlaroyal.com, Carla with a C, Royal with no E. People want
Mm,
to put an E on my name for some reason. Carlaroyal.com is probably the best way. I do have a very small presence on LinkedIn just because
mm,
I'm supposed to, but I don't, I'm very not active, but you can reach me there.
I
I'm
got
not active on social media, so my website's probably the best way, and you can find my phone number and a way to contact me
you.
there.
Awesome. Awesome. And that last name is fitting because I can see the divinity in you.
Oh, thank you,
And
Maurice.
I want to thank you for spending time with the Try Life On community and educating us. And actually, from the bottom of my heart, for entrepreneurs who don't know that they need you yet,
Yeah.
for sharing the message that you do about override. I mean, you share many things, but I latched on to that one particular
Mm-hmm.
thing. I
Mm-hmm.
think because it's a commonality in my lived experience, and I'm watching a lot of my business partners and friends struggle with it. And the best way that I can be a guide uh, is by walking the path and
Yes,
letting
that's
people
right.
see what I can do. But I will also say I am not here without the coaches that have influenced me and guided me
Mm-hmm.
one way or the other, whether it's business perspective, licensed therapist, now sitting. I love being a podcast host because in effect, I'm getting a bit of a coaching session um, shi just by having a light shine on different principles. So I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to thank you for being here with me.
Oh, thank you. And you're an amazing host. It's really easy and fun. I thank you for really good conversation.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Carla.
Yes.
Hey guys, this is Maurice, host of the Try Life On podcast, and thank you for listening to another episode. I hope you are finding it useful in helping you design your own lifestyle that you don't need a vacation from. If that's the case, please consider dropping a review for me, whether in Apple, iTunes, or in Spotify. Drop a review, put some stars on it, give me some feedback on how I can make the podcast better, what information you are looking for. I am doing my best to get information to you on the Try Life On principles, the 5 freedoms, how to build lifestyle, travel hacking, all of it. And I want to do it for you. So please do a review for me. And until next time, my name is Maurice Philogene, and this is the Try Life On podcast. Peace.